My watch list is literally called Inappropriate Anime. Should I watch it?
The answer is yes.
The answer is always yes.
Yes.
I mean, you should probably just move the I instead of should I. It's I should.
I should.
It's my think about list because Crunchyroll emails me, right? Oh, we think these shows would be great for you to watch this week. And like 90% of them are inappropriate. And I'm like, Crunchyroll, the fuck do you think I do?
They call you out.
You know what you want.
The algorithm knows.
Welcome to another episode of Anime and Tea Podcast. As always, I am Kim, the host, and today's topic we will be talking about basically comparing two different animes who have the kind of like the same storyline, whether it's like the same characters kind of have the same traits, or if, you know, we prefer one over the other. So today we'll basically be comparing two animes that have kind of like the same feel to them. Now, as always, I do have some members here. We do have in total, I believe we have 7. Let me just check. Yeah, we do have 7. So this is a huge group today. We have Joe, Colin, Omar, Zoe, Jordan, and Jose to talk a little bit about their comparisons. But as always, we will go around the room to talk about what's in your cup. I currently have some coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I love their freezes, so that is my addiction at the moment, is their freezes. What about you guys?
I have Dutch Bros again.
Also an addiction right there, Dutch Bros.
I love it.
I made myself an actual cup of tea this time in my new Valentine's Day mug. I'm drinking the Bigelow orange spice tea today, and it's delicious.
Oh, sounds delicious. What about the guys?
Well, for me, I'm currently drinking. Also, it is kind of Valentine's themed. Not the cup, but the tea is called Lover Sleep. So it's like black tea combined with chamomile and rose petals. So it's actually pretty good.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah.
Does it make you go to sleep? What's up with the name?
Because it's like Valentine's Day themed or something.
The rose petals is what makes it Valentine's.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm keeping it healthy, and I just got Dr. Pepper today.
Classic.
That's totally healthy right there.
23 flavors of longevity.
I'm currently drinking water out of my Final Fantasy 15 mug.
Nice.
I had a latte that I made, and I drank it right before I started because I have no self-control.
And that's totally okay.
I am rehydrating because I caught a cold earlier this week, and I treated it with the good old-fashioned remedy of moonshine and pre-workout. But
All right.
I kind of want to keep it on point with my boy Jose over here. I'm going to call it the narcoleptic Argentinian because I was watching too much Moulin Rouge while I was also asleep.
Best character in that movie.
That's quite the name right there. Just to start off, the two animes that I am comparing is Blue Exorcist versus Black Clover. Now, just to give you guys a bit of background, Black Clover I actually have watched. I think I'm on episode 53. Am I a fan of it? Not at all. I absolutely cannot deal the main character, but today we'll be comparing them to. So the reason I chose these two is because somewhat they do have like a related storyline, if you would say. For example, Rin from Blue Exorcist, he is different than all of his other classmates. He does have devil blood in him, which, you know, is compared to the other ones, it is very different. Now, I believe his name is Astra. Could be wrong. I forgot his name, but the main character in Black Clover, he doesn't have magic. So in some sort, even though he doesn't have magic, he has different magic, which is to negate magic. So I don't know how that works. I guess he can negate anyone's magic from a sword, which, I mean, that's pretty cool in the concept in itself. It's just like, is it still magic though? I have no idea. Like I said, I'm only on episode 53, so I'm not really that far into it now. The reason that to me they does seem a little bit similar is they both kind of grew up in a church idea, and they're both kind of like big brothers in the church as well. So they both have like orphans and little children, and like I said, they're just big brothers to both of them. And then they also have brothers within themselves. So like Rin has a younger brother, and then Astra does have, I believe, an older brother. I forgot like age-wise what they are. But that's why I kind of compared the two. Although the storylines are a little bit different, they're both going trying to become something. Now Rin isn't necessarily trying to become anything. He's just trying to kill Satan. So in that, he has to go to school and become, an exorcist and stuff like that. So I guess in that, it's not as much. Even knowing that they're both somewhat similar, I did enjoy watching Blue Exorcist. That one was actually one of the ones that I would have suggested to be a beginner anime because it is very short. My only thing of why I didn't choose it was because religious-wise, it's not always like for people who are heavy on religion. I would not recommend that one for that. Just, I do understand them for some people who believe that. They might think, it's trying to go towards the devil and hell and all that stuff. So it is one of those. But if you don't mind that, or you're not a religious person at all, I would recommend watching Blue Exorcist. Black Clover, though, like I said, I'm not a huge fan. The fighting scenes are amazing, though. So if you could get past his screaming for, maybe like 2/3 of the episode, then you might enjoy it a lot more. But my god, his screaming is the most annoying. Whether it's Japanese or English, his screaming is the most annoying thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't know why I watched it till episode at 53. Somehow, some way I managed it. So like I mentioned, I do prefer Blue Exorcist out of both of them. So again, I would definitely recommend it if you're a beginner. Again, just be careful because it does have devils and stuff. And it does have some tear-jerking moments in Blue Exorcist. Just an idea of if one of those things is like you need more emotion into it, I definitely would recommend Blue Exorcist. What do you guys think? Do you guys think it's...
See, I like both of them.
I will say, Kim, that I was actually raised Catholic, and it's interesting to me how the Japanese culture kind of they didn't really go far into a lot of the religious aspects of Catholicism, and I find that interesting because of the fact that it was kind of based in Catholicism. But I thoroughly enjoy Blue Exorcist. I actually cosplayed as Rin a couple of years ago. He's one of my favorite.
That's awesome.
Right? He's one of my favorite. Every time someone mentions cosplay, Joe gets like a little beep.
It just makes me so excited.
I'm the same as you. I've never seen Black Clover, but I love Blue Exorcist. It is definitely one of my at least top 10 anime.
See, if I had to pick like which one I like better out of the two, having seen both, I would say Blue Exorcist. But that's the one like I wholeheartedly like started watching on my own and I really enjoyed, and I'm glad that it's gonna make a comeback. But Black Clover is like my best friend's like #1 anime, swears by it 100%, and so I watched it with him for that, and I was like, oh, I kind of dig it, like the fight scenes were fun, like the characters are kooky, like that kind of thing. But I definitely like, if I had to pick one, it would be Blue Exorcist, because I chose that one on my own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would probably also say Blue Exorcist. I feel like I've been hearing a lot of good things about Black Clover overall, but it's something that I haven't actually had the time to watch. But everything I have heard, not even just from you, is that there are some shocking similarities between the two. But Blue Exorcist is one of those ones that I recommend to people that are starting to dabble into more anime than the kind of beginner stuff.
Oh, for sure. It's like a great starter, honestly.
I'm just gonna throw the cup to Joe and see what two animes you are comparing to in regards to this discussion.
Yeah, so I picked a very controversial one. I'm doing Eden Zero and Fairy Tail. Yeah, I know, same creator, whatever. And I actually picked these two because I thoroughly enjoy both of them, but there is a lot of controversy with them in the anime world because some people don't actually understand why they are the same concept and how that came about. So the creator, he keeps his characters and his art style very similar to what he's drawn in the past. So for instance, like Rebecca and Lucy are literally the same art style. They do have a little bit of the same ditzy personality, but there are some differences. Like, I even think the English VA is the same for her and Happy for both of them. Happy's the talking cat if you haven't watched either of them. But yeah, so he's said in interviews before that these are like parallel universes to each other. So of course the characters are similar and they do act the same, but they also act different because that is the idea of the whole parallel controversy. And so if you watch Eden Zero, you will see the fairy tale characters like 120% in almost every episode and Easter eggs from fairy tale. And when you watch the later fairy tale seasons, you will see a little bit of the Eden Zero characters in there as well. Not so much in the beginning, since Eden Zero got animated later. But despite them having those different animation and production companies, they kept it pretty similar. So I do appreciate that. But like the concept is literally the same in both. They're going on an adventure and they're trying to do something. And so like Shiki and Rebecca are taking VCube, which is like YouTube videos of their adventure, and Shiki's trying to make like 100 friends and go find this like deity called Mother. And then in Fairy Tale, like Natsu and Lucy are trying to fight dragons and find Natsu's dragon dad. Like, it's a whole thing. The characters are great. I love them. It's great for starters, honestly. Like, if you don't know what anime is, like, that's a great one to start with just because it is funny, laid back. There are some scenes that are totally unnecessary, in my opinion. Like, when Lucy fights and she loses her clothes every time, like, that doesn't have to happen. She is a ditzy blonde, we get it, whatever. But it is what it is. But yeah, like, I've watched both of them completely for what's out. I'm really excited for Eden Zero Season 2 to come out. Like, I'm excited to see where they take it. But I don't particularly have a preference for either one because they are so similar. But I do know a lot of people that are like, Eden's is better, or Fairy Tail is better, or whatever. So I'm definitely curious to see what our listeners have to say about that, because it is one of those more controversial ones, because it's like, you have to be Team Fairy Tail or Team Eden's. And I'm like here in the middle, like, no, bro, we're all good.
I was never really a Fairy Tail fan, that's for sure. But I can imagine that, yeah, you could probably compare the both of them similarly and stuff like that. Would I recommend it? That's my personal opinion. I don't want to get into that.
I'm a Joe. I love Fairy Tail. Love Fairy Tail.
I will say that I find it hilarious. Everyone's always talking about Eden of the East or Fairy Tail. No one mentions Rave Master. What the F?
Oh my god, yes!
Oh, I love Rave Master.
See? You forgot its existence, didn't you?
I tried to get into Fairy Tail because of that.
Zoe, I appreciated that you said Eden of the East, by the way. That really stuck with you from last week.
I know.
Literally in the interview, when he was talking about the similarities, he was like, oh, clearly we don't talk about Rave Master. And I was like, bro, what? Yes.
Exactly. Everyone's like, oh, Fairy Tail. It's like no one remembers Rave Master. That was like the first instance of all of these characters being in the same universe.
Oh, wait, are you saying they're from the same universe?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like parallel universes.
Yeah.
So anything he produces, like anything he works on with an art style or anything, the fights are very similar because he likes to draw in that style. He likes to keep his characters similar because it's easier to maintain. And if you put those differences, it does kind of open those doors of like what Marvel's doing with the multiverse and like the quantum verse and all that stuff. Like, we have these parallel universes and the characters are similar, but they're slightly different each time you go.
Okay.
So he like walks those lines with his work, and it's honestly pretty awesome. I like it.
I was gonna say what's kind of funny about the quote unquote controversy between like the parallel worlds and everything is like in Fairy Tail, he literally wrote a parallel world within Fairy Tail even.
Yep.
And it's like that should be pretty easy to identify what he's doing. It's like here's an in anime example, in manga example, and then still like this is too similar. I'm like, you can't pick up his vibe.
Right.
There's a reason for everything.
Oh, 100%. But like Rave Master isn't normally in the conversation. Like the author himself brought it into the conversation in his interviews because he's like, we're just all going to forget Rave Master happened apparently because Fairy Tail is very popular. And Fairy Tail is still even more popular than Eden Zero, which is fine and dandy. But like a lot of the people that do watch both of them are like, oh, I like Fairy Tail more. And I'm like, right, but Eden Zero is still developing. Like, the manga itself is still developing. And this second season is about to get animated. And Fairy Tail's been animated for years, and then they're about to do, like, the new spin-off of it. So, like, I was like, I get it. Fairy Tail's great. Eden's is also great, but you have to give them both a chance because they are literally the same.
Omar, the two that you picked are definitely very odd to me. Full Metal Alchemist and then, oh my god, Demon Slayer. Can you tell me about that? I do not see how you can compare the two, honestly.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do it. I don't want to do a ton of spoilers on here, so I'm going to kind of put it in bullet point format here for everybody. Just starting from the top here. Both anime have siblings that lose their human bodies. Both main characters join the military. Both of them have dads with a mysterious past. Both have loving but super dead moms. Both big baddies are trying to find ultimate power and immortality. Both the big baddies have a interesting history with the hero's family and ancestors. Both only succeed through hard work and the power of friendship. And both are the absolute shit, and I will watch them both over and over and over.
Okay.
Good argument.
Yes, those bullet points were perfect.
Those were excellent points. Excellent points. You can also argue the Crybaby.
Oh yeah, our boy.
Zenitsu love.
They do. My boy Zenitsu gets so much hate, but that's why he's my boy. I don't care.
No, I'm doing the TikTok for it of like, show me someone who loves Zenitsu more than me because you're not gonna find it. My entire car is Zenitsu-fied. I have the seat covers, I have the floor mats, I have the lanyard. Love my Crybaby.
Zenitsu he might not be best boy in that one overall, but he definitely has a strong argument. I mean, if you actually pay attention to the way he reacts outside of screaming and why he does what he does and his motivations throughout the whole series, he does not get near the amount of love that he does. Just because he was written to be loud and cry a lot doesn't mean that his character, as written, isn't actually really deep and have a whole lot of, emotional damage he's working through and a good heart and all that kind of stuff. But either way,
I mean, I have read the manga, and honestly, like, I did not like him at first. I did not. I was like, who puts a Crybaby on there? I don't know why, but I got the vibe of that guy from My Hero Academia with the purple.
Mineta?
Oh.
He's not
No. Do not put him in the same sentence as Zenitsu.
Ooh, we about had a mutiny.
Mineta can suck it.
Kim, we were about to have a very
I'll
serious
just say
friendship
Zenitsu.
pass.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, like I read the manga, and then just hearing his background, I was like, okay, yeah, I could see where he gets his power from. I could see how he is now, and like I do like him. Not my favorite, but I do like him.
I'll say this without going into spoilers for Demon Slayer. Like, think about the part in that that mansion with that demon that would turn everything like upside down or whatever. Think about the real reasons why Zenitsu was protecting the box when he had no idea what was in the box outside of a demon, and why he's protected so hard against Inosuke. Think about the reasoning there that early, and that's when you'll kind of realize how deep Zenitsu actually is, but it kind of gets missed because of his screaming.
I was just going to say, I don't want to be that guy that's always like, ooh, I've read the manga and just wait till what happens. But to those that are anime only with Demon Slayer it is one of those things where, like, in the coming arcs, there's like some really good moments where those inklings of Zenith's character from the earlier bits really come to a head, and it's where most people change their minds about the character.
Yeah, like he gets his redemption.
I agree.
Yeah. I kind of felt with him the way I felt with Ed in the beginning, though, because I didn't really like Ed. And so I gave it a couple chances. And then I was the same with, like, Zenitsu. I was like, oh, it's a crybaby. Like, I want to love him. I like his qualities of, like, he randomly sees a woman and he just wants to be loved. So he's like, please marry me. And, like, his love for Nezuko is, like, ridiculous. But, like, Ed just bothered me so much when I was first watching it. And I was like, oh, I have to give him a chance. And then he did kind of start, like, his character evolution definitely changed it. And I felt that same way with, like, Zenitsu. I was like, I want to love you, bro. Like, give me a reason. And so, yeah, like, I could definitely see people having to wait and to see those more redeeming qualities if they're not going to give him a chance early on.
Yeah, I was actually going to say another similarity that I just realized between FMA and Demon Slayer is the fact that you have two villains that like to dress up in white suits.
I was going to make that as a joke at the end there, because you got Kimberly and you got Michael Jackson Muzan.
Exactly.
Criminals.
They're smooth criminals.
Oh, snap.
Are you ready, Colin? I'm gonna go to you.
I'm never prepared, not for life, not for the show, but let's wing it.
Let's wing it. What two animes did you compare, or did you recommend comparing to, and are similar?
I decided to pick the Guyver and Sailor Moon. They're both magical changing people. I'm kidding.
No, go on.
Oh, I wanted to hear this, man.
Actually, yeah, that's a good one.
Make it work,
I
damn it.
really wanted to do that, where it's just like I'm gonna pick two very contrasting shows, and I'm just gonna go with it. But like at that point, I'm really doing mental gymnastics, and I haven't stretched, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the easiest one I could think of, which was Escaflowne, The Tales of Escaflowne, and Gundam Wing. Pretty much any Gundam series, but I know Wing more than I know the others. Besides the fact that one is an isekai, the idea is that the similarities are simple. You have a girl who has no concept of what's going on, who has fallen in love with a incredibly pain-in-the-ass stoic man who uses a giant mech to tear apart a corrupt government. That's it in a nutshell. The difference is Escaflowne is more fantasy, Gundam Wing's obviously more sci-fi, and like it gets really boring when you start looking at the politics of everything and can slow down the show. But they are the same one. I mean, I don't remember a scene in Escaflowne where the main character is screaming for Vaughn to kill her, but that's always going to be a special place in my heart. That was the most overacted show I've seen in a long time.
And that's saying something for anime.
Especially late 90s anime, man.
Oh, God. Right? Well, it showed up on Fox, and I don't know how long it lasted on Fox. I definitely didn't watch it then.
Oh, yeah, because that was the 4Kids version or whatever, the Fox Kids version of Escaflowne, so they kind of tore it apart a little bit. You had to watch it VHS or DVD back then to really enjoy it.
So a girl essentially is like morose and not understanding life as most teenage girls in anime seem to be. I don't understand in the 90s. And she gets isekai'd into a world where monsters and knights and castles and flying ships exist. And there is one person named Vaughn who is in possession of a giant mech that can turn into a dragon known as Escaflowne. And he is constantly in struggle with some opposing government. It gets real dry at points, but the fight scenes are pretty rad. The movie was sweet. The soundtrack was pretty banger too. Damn. Now I want to watch Escaflowne.
He's like looking around like, where is it?
I mean, it's in a box with all my other stuff. Bookshelves are for people who've stopped collecting.
Don't call me out like that.
Don't call me out like that.
It's a personal attack, sir.
All my bookshelves broke. I just had to start putting them in boxes. But no, like, it's this girl's adventure through this world while she does or doesn't find out, like, try to figure out if she's got romantic feelings for Vaughn. It's like a far more avant-garde version of Inuyasha as far as that goes. I know it's a simple choice, but like I said, I didn't want to do the mental gymnastics to do Guyver and Sailor Moon.
Apparently, they're both like close to the same year. It says Gundam was in 1995 through 96, and then Escaflowne is 96 to 97.
That would explain it.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like, for some reason I thought Gundam was like, well, Gundam Wing, I should say, was a little bit more recent, but I think I'm just thinking of a different Gundam one.
There's a lot of different Gundams.
When it aired on Toonami and stuff.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Now, you mentioned about the politics side. Like, is it similar in the politics side? Is that why you're trying to compare them?
Kind of. Like, oppressive rule versus new rule. A ragtag group of rebels trying to dismantle oppressive rule. And unlike Gundam, only one has a mech in Escaflowne. Like, I'm really stretching here, but all in all, like, if you had to specify it, like, Gundam is definitely a shonen anime, where Escaflowne would have been more of the shoujo version of it.
Okay.
They really just brought the mech in to get the guys to watch it. But it is just a big game of politics with mechs.
With mechs. I like mechs, but I feel like they've stretched Mobile Suit Gundam very big. Like, there's so many different types now that I'm like, I don't even know where to start.
The best argument I heard against, like, Gundam, and I have to agree with it, is it's just like, shut up with the politics, show me the robot. And yeah, they're not wrong. Like, if I had to recommend mech animes to people who've never watched an anime before, Gundam really wouldn't be the first one. Like,
Maybe G Gundam.
oh yeah, a highly racist soap opera. Yeah, this Gundam's from Mexico, so we gave this sombrero.
The most racist Gundam ever made. Oh, I remember I laughed so hard at that. I'm like, I should be offended. My ancestors would be offended, but it's just funny. I don't even care.
So Zoe, since you've heard both of these suggestions that Colin made, what are the two that you picked in regards to comparing them to?
Okay, so the two that I picked are not only similar in plot, but they are also similar in title. And the two that I'm going to compare are Little Witch Academia and My Hero Academia. Now, at first glance, you really don't see the similarities. Completely different worlds, completely different scenarios. But when you take a little bit of a deeper dive, basically you notice a small child has no powers in a world where it's possible to have powers. They go to school. The school is specifically designed for them to learn about those powers. And while they are being very new to having these powers, they are learning about having these powers. And in the end result is antics and hijinks ensue. That's, admittedly, this is mostly just dealing with like the first season of My Hero Academia. But at first I was like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to think of any anime that have anything in common. And then I was like, well, what are animes that I've at least seen? And I was listing them off, and I'm like, oh, well, My Hero Academia. Oh, and yeah, Little Witch Academia. That's kind of, wait. That's what I'm going with.
So, like, comparing them to, is it only, like, able to compare them, like, from the first season of, like, My Hero, or does it develop enough where, like, it's gotten to where My Hero is now, where it's, like, kind of dark, it's taking a turn, stuff like that? I've never seen my Little Witch Academia.
To be fair, I am just now starting on season 4 of MHA, so I don't really know how. I know from some slight spoilers that it does get darker, but I genuinely don't really know any idea, which is why I kind of wanted to do this comparison, because of the fact that Little Witch Academia, it's only 2 seasons, but you can do a lot of comparisons with them in those 2 seasons, I think.
I'll definitely have to check it out.
With Little Witch, if it went on longer, I could see it kind of verging into some of the stuff that we see in the later arcs and seasons of My Hero. But even in like the first few seasons between both shows, yeah, especially like the whole thing with like mentors and like the main character kind of learning from those feel very one for one. I guess slight spoilers for season 2 of Little Witch Academia, but you see those kind of connections between the students and their more or less idol that they're learning from.
Right, exactly.
So in Little Witch, like, are they all witches, I'm assuming? So the main character on that one, so it's kind of like Deku where they have no power or no magic kind of deal?
Right, exactly. So, but somehow they were still invited to go to this school of witchcraft, essentially, because they had the potential for magic, but they never were able to develop it, and so they go to the school to learn how they can develop their powers. And a lot of the characters, me personally, I think are really very similar, because you have this one girl where her family is like elite level witches. You know, she's learned from very young age that she's going to be one of the most powerful witches and all this other stuff. And she kind of it's kind of like with
Shoko
Todoroki. Yeah, it's kind of like with him where his family is like this. They're supposed to be like this elite class of heroes. It's kind of on that same level, that same comparison with those two.
Okay. Do you have like a preference between them two? Like which one you probably like would like more?
Honestly, I really don't. I think they both have great stories. I have talked about Little Witch Academia before, in that it is a great starter anime, and it was my daughter's first official anime, and I think it's a beautiful story. It's great for like knowing friendship and developing these characters. And My Hero Academia is kind of like the boy version. You know, it's a good starter anime if you want something that's a little more boyish, a little more, you know, fight heavy, action-y kind of thing. And like I said, I've only watched up to the beginning of season 4 of My Hero Academia, but I am still enjoying it. I love how it's not solely focused on Deku. They give each character their time, you know, and I think that's also one of the reasons why it's so popular, is because you get to know these characters and you're like, okay, well, I don't really care for Fat Gum, but I love Hawks. You know, I haven't been introduced to Hawks yet, but you know, I'm not a fan of Millions, but I think Sun Eater is a great character, and they each have their own time to be developed, and that's one of the things I think makes My Hero Academia so great.
I kind of agree. Well, I haven't seen it, the Little Witch Academia, but I do. Now that you're like comparing it together, I feel like if they did have more seasons, maybe like in a female perspective, it might have also kind of developed in a different way as My Hero in that aspect.
Yeah.
So I definitely need to check it out, though. It is on Netflix, and every time I see it, I'm like, it's so cute. But
it is cute.
I'm just like, I don't know why I don't watch it. Maybe I should.
I will say, as a chonky boy, I feel personally attacked that you don't like Fat Gum, just for the record.
Okay. I was I'm sorry.
I'm just upset she doesn't like Lemillion.
Oh, jeez.
I find him annoying. I'm sorry. He has his quirks. No pun intended.
He has a quirk, yeah.
Yeah, they
Most
all
of them do. Not Deku.
But
You're
I
welcome to
will
season
say
6.
there is no eating of body parts in Little Witch Academia, but there is consummation of potentially hazardous psychedelics.
Oh,
so there is that.
Okay. Well, that's interesting for like a little cute anime. Oh, there's some psychedelics in there. Whoa. Oh, well then.
You gotta get them while they're young, otherwise you...
At a young age.
Yeah.
How old are they? Are they 13? They look 13.
They're like 14, 15.
Yeah, something like
Okay.
that. It's 12 to 14 age range.
Your way to school.
Yeah, you
Oh,
stuff,
no.
you experiment. It's no big deal.
Susie is a very straightforward and advanced person. You know, she's getting into
I
things young.
love Susie.
She's great.
Not gonna lie, at first I
Yeah.
thought you said Susia. I'm like, excuse me? I was like, wait.
Whoops.
Now that girl's got bodies under her bed. Guarantee it.
Oh, definitely.
Jordan, are you? Do you have like a?
Yeah, I'm 100% ready to go. I also thought of this very on the spot. I'm never prepared for things. And as much as I would love to talk about Digimon being the grandfather of all isekai anime, we're not going to do that today. Instead, we're going to be talking about Evangelion and pretty much every Gundam series, specifically Mobile Suit Gundams, but a little bit on Iron Blood Orphans 2, which is something I'm recently watching. And the comparison here is that Evangelion is very famous for the whole, like, get in the robot, it cured my depression and replaced it with a brand new depression kind of show. But all of this really kind of stems from its relation to Gundam and some other anime of its time that were all about, like, a young boy gets into a mecha, fights a war, and everything's awesome. They're like, you know, a war hero and things are great, and they don't have all this horrible trauma that any rational person would have in these kind of situations. And I think what's interesting about the two, kind of looking at them, is they do kind of have different ways of dealing with the whole, what is it like when a child is in a more or less a war zone or a conflict that's far above them as far as maturity, scope, scale, pay grade. And that is why I want to also compare it to Iron-Blooded Orphans, which is another Gundam series that to many's like and surprise, actually is about, yet again, child soldiers. But in this case, it's not very good and not very fortunate for them. Unlike the heroes of Mobile Suit Gundam, they're not being paraded around as being amazing. They're like, hey, we're in a shitty situation, and this is not good for anyone this young to be going through, which is pretty much what the back half of Evangelion is all about.
Would you recommend anything like more than the other in regards to like knowing that they both have the same plot?
It's kind of interesting. I think Colin noted this. I would not recommend Evangelion or Gundam to new time watchers. People kind of look at both of those shows, yet another similarity, and think like, oh, it's a fun show about mechs that fight. But Gundam is a space opera that is often very deep into politics and the story, whereas Evangelion is very heavy about somewhat biblical themes, but also just like the trauma, the horrors, the things that these kind of weird survivalist scenarios put on both, you know, fully functioning adults, but also, you know, a young boy named Shinji who does not have the mental fortitude to be going through these kind of situations. But if you are not a first-time watcher, go for it.
All right, Jordan, tell me this. In Ava, how shook were you in that scene when Asuka's in a coma and Shinji's in the hospital room with her?
To quote Asuka at the end of Evangelion, disgusting.
Do I even want to know what this is? I'm like, I've never watched both of them, so now I'm just like, what is this?
For anybody who's unaware, watch Neo Geo.
Oh Lord!
Put that in the next watch party.
If you're willing to like kind of sit through the dark and often depressing themes of Evangelion, it's really good. If you're willing to sit through the political space opera of Gundam, Mobile Suit, or Iron Blood Orphans, it's also really good. They're just not super beginner friendly, and they often have this premise of like bright and shiny that as soon as you get a good number of episodes in, you start going, ooh, this is not a good situation for anyone involved.
Well, especially if you mentioned the like kids part, like these are children being put in like scenarios where it's like no child should go through any of this.
And I can imagine being a young kid of like the 80s and the 90s, turning on a TV show, seeing Amuro Ray in Mobile Suit Gundam and be like, oh, he's like me. He's like a kid, but he's piloting this big robot and like kicking ass. That's awesome. But then you kind of see when you're older how much it develops, and Evangelion really takes that theme of like, no, this is not a good thing. Bad times. Don't put the kid in the Gundam. Don't be a bad father.
Shinji, don't get in the robot.
Don't get in the robot.
It steers hard into the trauma with that one. It's
oh, yes.
an excellent anime, but it does not pull any punches, even from like the
it's
get-go.
fantastic.
Like the first time you see them getting ready to put Rei in Unit 1, and that's why Shinji gets in there in the first place, when he sees the condition they're about to take this child, in his eyes, and just shove her in this robot to go fight these monsters. It's like, holy crap.
I was just gonna ask, as someone who has never watched like Mobile Suit Gundam, is Iron Blooded Orphans a good place to start, or do you need some context?
I could go on about this for a while, but to make it short, Iron Blooded Orphans is a great place to start, because Gundam is very famous for like, there's a lot of spin-off series like Wing or G Gundam or Iron Blooded Orphans that are in their own continuities and it's their own story. Everything else, like Mobile Suit Gundam, is part of this long continuing timeline that they call the New Century. So if you're like looking back at some of the older ones, or even some of the ones like Gundam Unicorn, you do need context. But something like Iron Blooded Orphans that just stands alone, you can just watch and you don't really need much of any pretext.
All right, cool. I'll add that to my watch list for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan. That was actually a really good comparison, the two, even though I don't watch both of them, but it seems like a lot of the cast members have, so that was actually really good. Jose, are you ready? Do you have your two?
All right. So originally I was thinking, I'm kind of like Jordan. I was thinking of them on the spot. I was gonna compare One Punch Man with Overlord, just because they're both like, I mean, they both feature like OP, super OP, like main characters. They're both making fun of certain thing. Like One Punch Man is making fun of like the main protagonists being super OP, like Goku, like that trope, and then Overlord is kind of like making fun of like the whole like isekai genre. But I haven't actually watched a whole lot of Overlord past season 1, so like I feel I can't make a really good comparison beyond that. So I'll just go with like the easy one, which is Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Just because they come from the same creator. They both, like the main character, they both have kind of like the same attitude of like this like suave, like really skilled person, but like also very laid back. And it's like they they have like their issues kind of like, I guess, like buried, but like on the outside they act like, oh, they don't care about anything. And they also have their kind of like, there's like a counterweight or a balance, right? With Mugen, it's Jin, which is, he's more like, I guess, mature, more collected. And then with Spike, it's Jed, which is also like a more mature, more experienced individual. And obviously, like another big thing with it too is like the music. The like music plays a big part of overall, like the overall story, like it has like supposed to take place like during like the gangsters, like all this stuff going on, kind of like towards the end. They in both anime that, well, in one case it leads to their death, another one it almost kills them, but not quite. So yeah, I mean that's really, I mean obviously they're very comparable. They come from the same creator. They have a hair like that. But see if I can pull it off. And if I had to pick like what I preferred, I would say Samurai Champloo, just because that introduced me to a whole like new genre of music with Nujivis. which is not like very popularized, known as lo-fi hip hop, but like anime, like going forward. Actually, like, even Cowboy Bebop, I didn't watch like back in the day. I watched it now like as a young adult, so I'm kind of biased because Samurai Champloo is way more nostalgic for me since I got to watch it in Adult Swim.
I think the music is a great comparison too, because if you looked at both of those series in a vacuum with minimum details, they almost have like the same skeleton, but the details like the music, the characters, and things really flesh them out into very different directions. Neither being bad, but each having its own separate identity, despite like a very samey kind of like outline when you get really high level. But it's in the details where they're both excelling in their own way.
But it's really, they're really hard to like rank.
I would say I've seen Cowboy Bebop countless times. I have never seen Samurai Champloo. So I never realized that there were so many similarities, especially in music, because that's always one of the things that draws me more into an anime is if they have good tone music kind of thing.
And then with Samurai Champloo, it's like hip hop.
Yeah, really just kind of besides like the themes between the two, the only main difference really is just like kind of the storytelling, with like Samurai Champloo having a bit more of like a through plot, whereas Cowboy Bebop has a bit more of that like bounty hunting slice of life, minus like the few like pivotal scenes that kind of happen throughout the episodes.
Yeah.
But man, both series are really good. They have such great soundtracks, and yeah, the three-person dynamic of kind of like the two teams that you follow are similar and badass, but for different reasons. Both are great.
I gotta say, it's really hard to, like, if you had to pick one out of both of them. At least for me, I'm like, I love both of them a lot. Like, especially when it comes to music. Like, they somewhat have different vibes, but it's like the storyline, the characters and everything are just like, they're both so good. It's hard to just be like, you should watch this one first. I'm like, if you start on one of them, like, either you'll love both. You'll just love it. Music-wise, like, it's hard. I feel like it does open into, like, an idea of, like, even though you're not into those at first, like, if you watch the anime, you'll feel more into both genres of music because it plays so well into the animation, for sure.
They're both great. They're both, like, amazing soundtracks.
Looks like we spilled all our tea for today. Follow us on all socials at animeandtea.com. That's anime, ANDTEA.com, or email us at anime.teapodcast@gmail.com. You can also listen to us through different platforms such as Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. To become a patron and help support our podcast, please go to patreon.com/anime-tea-podcast. Currently only $5 a month. Even if you're not a patron, we appreciate you for sharing, listening, and engaging.
I still want to hear that MacGyver Sailor Moon thing. I need that.
It's not even MacGyver. It is the Guyver. I can't get into it right now.
Get prepared for it, and just get back to us another day, Colin.
Okay.
That's okay. Now you have to do all this research because you had to bring the idea out, Colin. So now we need to hear it.
Limber up.
Alright guys, so as you can see, all the ones that we compared are completely different, but in some aspects, some of them were somewhat similar in the characteristics we kind of described, as well as the bulletins and stuff like that. It really just depends on how you see at it. Not all of them are compared. Some of them, you can literally watch both of them and be happy with it. On our next episode, the difference between the older classic anime compared to modern current ones. And we hope to see you on next episode. Goodbye, guys!